Yo guys, Josh here, and today, hey, you probably didn't expect another BioShock video, but we all know since Vanguard blows ass, might as well finish up some Xbox 360 games or play some older games. Well, after playing and beating a few other different old 360 games that I never got around to playing, I played BioShock Infinite, which you would have seen my previous video. I showed all of the Vigor thingies, the drinks and stuff that empower you and stuff, all those animations. 2015 was the last time I played this, and then I grinded like pretty much every achievement. And yes, unfortunately, this is the Xbox 360 edition of the game that you're gonna see me playing. Other than Call of Duty and horror games, BioShock is pretty much my favorite game and the best game that I have ever played, which is it just everything about it. It's just amazing. Like I usually do, every once in a while I come up with a video idea and I'm like, you can get 8 different of those plasmids. I'm gonna avoid saying vigor a lot because it sounds dangerously close to another word that I do not want to say. So yeah, we're gonna say plasmids. So you get 8 different plasmids in the game. So I thought to myself, how many can actually be skipped? So obviously I do like what I normally do. I Google it. I'm like, let's see a video. Nobody has done a video on this. I'm like, okay. I'm like, challenge accepted. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be playing BioShock Infinite on hard to give it at least a little bit of a challenge. I'm also going to be getting every single collectible in the game to better give myself an advantage. PS5 trophies videos for all the BioShock Infinite collectibles, in case you were like wondering and stuff like that. So yeah, let's get into this video. So yeah, the very start of this game, you are shown this kind of cool BioShock Infinite. So then you're on a boat with 2 random people, and basically you owe money to people that you do not want to owe money to. I'm assuming like loan sharks and like mobsters and stuff. So you gotta find this girl Elizabeth. So then you arrive at the lighthouse. Once you get to the top of the lighthouse, you activate like these weird bell thingies. Sky goes like weird, and then this chair appears, and then you like then sit into this chair. And then you get encased, and then like I don't know what this is. You're like in a rocket or something. You're like strapped into a rocket, and then you get like launched up into the sky. And no, you're not going to heaven. You're going to like the Columbia, the floating city in the sky. And then once you land on the floating city, you'll enter like kind of almost like an occult area, I'm calling it. So that's kind of weird. And then you approach this random dude here who's like baptizing people. And then he baptizes you, but instead of like baptizes you, he almost like drowns you. And then after you wake up from, I don't know if you were actually drowned or something, but then you wake up in Columbia now, the floating city. I don't know what that previous thing was, like I said, an occult thing. So yeah, now you wake up in Columbia after pretty much getting drowned, and then walking through Columbia, there's just a whole bunch of I guess floating parades and stuff. Oh, and PS for future reference, I am cutting out a lot of stuff. I film like little bits every once in a while because I don't want to like give away spoilers. And then you finally walking through Columbia, you get to the fair where apparently there's kids smoking. So yeah, that's always a plus. And then once you make your way through the fair, you will then encounter your very first plasmid, and that is the possession plasmid. Now, as much as I tried to strafe jump, tried to jump around, tried to avoid this as much as possible. Unfortunately, you can't, because you can see there's like a scripted sequence waiting. They're waiting there for you, which is kind of creepy. They're just standing there, so I'm like, hello. And that robot won't give you the ticket until you actually grab the possession. So I'm like, you know what? I'm like, fine, this is a forced one. So this is the first one that's scripted, and unfortunately, you cannot avoid grabbing this. So yeah, once you grab it, you possess this machine. The machine then opens the door, and then you like encounter these creepy dudes here. Now, little fun fact, no matter how many times you restart this, it's always going to be heads. And now, once you travel through the fair a little bit more, you'll enter the raffle area. Now, this is where things get a little racist. You know, it is set in 1912, so I guess that's accurate because that's what it would have been like back in the day. And then you have like this racist dude. I picked all the good choices here because I'm like, you know what? I'm like, no, buddy. I'm like, that's not cool. Racism is not cool. And then apparently they recognize you as like the snake in the grass or something like that. I have no clue what that means. And then this dude gets this dude gets completely mulched by, you know, I don't even get it because the claw doesn't even look very sharp. Like, look at it. Okay, it kind of does look a little sharp, but what can I say? And then this dude gets mesmerized by the ball getting thrown up, and then he gets his face ripped off. And then you grab this hook, and then you begin the fight sequence number 1 out of many that will happen in this game. Alright, so after going through a little bit more of a little fight scene, you will enter this area, which you will verse the first fireman. Now, this dude is like kind of like the Panzer in like Zombies, who has the suit. You can actually possess him, as you see here. I was like trying to, because remember I'm playing it on hard, so I'm like, okay, I don't want to take too much unnecessary damage, so I'm like, oh lord, my health is low. I'm like, please die, and then he died. Oh no, he didn't die yet. I was like, oh damn, I thought I killed you. So now we get to plasmid number 2. Now it says here, grab it from the fireman. So I'm like, you know what? I'm like, nope, we're skipping it. We're skipping it. Unfortunately, yeah, so this is another forced one, so I'm like, alright, I'm like, let me skip it. I'm like, oh sweet Jesus, the turret's still available. So after we destroy the turret, I then decided to see if I could somehow strafe jump to that area there. Unfortunately, no. This is another forced one. Like, you have to grab this one, because I'm like, alright, I'm like, fine. So yeah, unfortunately, like I said, there was so much. I tried to avoid this as much as possible, but since in the game's coding this is tagged to a scripted sequence, which you will soon see here, the dudes will spawn, which I'm waiting for them with a fire thing. I failed miserably, but then hitting them with a fire, they all pretty much died, because you can see my health is low. I'm like, please don't kill me this early in the game. So once you battle through a few more battles, you will enter the weird, scarecrow area. I don't know what it's called. It's just a weird scarecrow area where you encounter the zenith of lady or something. I don't know the 100% all these names. So then you walk a little bit more through this creepy house. You'll come to where this dude gets like ripped apart by scarecrows. Again, that I skipped because like you gotta play it to see it. Where are you? Let me smoke your ass. Apparently he can like takes quite a lot of damage. I don't know if it's a he or she because it's like the zenith of the lady, so I don't know exactly what that means. So after dispatching this dude, he drops the murder crows. So I'm like, you know what? I'm like, I have an idea. I'm like, let me just avoid this. I'm like, nope, we're not grabbing it. This surprised me a lot. I don't know if this is just because I'm playing the 360, but look at that. I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. I'm like, wait a second. Yeah, this is one of those moments that actually caught me off guard, because I'm like, wait a second. I thought that you had to grab murder crows before this sequence would actually activate. Turns out, this might just be a PlayStation 3 / Xbox 360 thing, because, like, I just walked like right through it. Now again, I don't know if that was actually scripted, because it looks like they were waiting there for me. So personally, I think that might not have been a scripted sequence. You go through a bit more of Colombia and all that stuff, and then you get to ride the rail with your magnetic Skyline grapple hook. This kind of made me sick looking down, and then you can like slam this dude, and then he's dead. And then back up on the rail after slamming that guy. And yes, I remember, like I said, I was getting all collectibles, so that's why I said to stop in every area. So we go up again with the sky hook. We're going down. Man, this is like, this was the coolest kind of concept of the game that I really liked. So then we appear, then I sneak up on this dude, like, and then I fail miserably to do the sky slam. So I'm like, all right, let me smoke your ass. Then again, we hook back up to the sky. There's a lot of sequences in this level where we gotta go to the sky hook. Then after sky hooking for a little bit, you're gonna land in this area, which all the dudes are like standing down. So that was That was kind of weird. I forget why Comstock was like, oh, don't shoot. And then Comstock gives this big speech of like, yada, yada, yada. You can play the game, like I said, to hear what he says. But he's like, he's kind of like the cult leader, I would say. Kind of just weird. You then, in the zeppelin, and then you see him. And then he gives, of course, like the whole peace be with you. Like he's like a nice guy, but he's like not. And then the lady behind you, she's like, I will now suicide. And I'm like, no. I'm like, oh, God. Of course. I'm like, all right. I'm like, of course. Cult leading. The women or anybody will do whatever they want for. And then I'm a fool and I forgot to click the thing there. I was going to edit that out, but I'm like, okay. I'm like, no, I'm an idiot. So then you got to get off that before it explodes. And then finally you get to go to like the Monument Island area. So now you're at the point where you're pretty much going to rescue Elizabeth, which looking at all this stuff, I thought Elizabeth was like some like 7 foot tall, huge woman, super dangerous. Because the first time I played this, I'm like, man, it shows a lot of warnings and stuff. I'm like, who am I like gonna verse? Yeah, so after going through outside, going through many doors, up and down, you finally get to meet Elizabeth, which that is an interesting introduction. She's like, oh, who are you? Falling through my ceiling. Then she's throwing like books at me. I'm like, okay. I'm like, yeah, that's gonna stop me. And then she grabs like another book. I'm like, yeah, what you gonna do with that? And then of course the songbird, the giant robot that protects her, tries to intervene and stuff. And then you're like, how are we gonna get out of here? Then Elizabeth's like, oh, give me the key. Or you're like, I found this key. And then Elizabeth grabs the key and then opens the door, and then you make your daring escape. And then finally at the end of then after making your whole daring escape, running through everything, the songbird then tears the elevator door off. Like I'm like, oh god. So I started shooting thinking that would matter, but apparently he's made out of like titanium or tungsten, because like bullets did like absolutely nothing. And then once again you make your daring escape, trying to avoid the songbird and all that stuff. The songbird is gonna intervene, and then the tower is gonna like flip. You're gonna fall. You're gonna grab Elizabeth and then lock on to the Skyline thingy, and you're gonna go for a ride. You have to look for Elizabeth, and then you're like, oh, there you are. It's like, let's go. And then she's like, let's dance. And then we're like, I don't and then of course your character Booker lies, and he's like, oh, there's Paris, because then later when she was like locked up, she like opened a rift, which her like ability is, to Paris. And then once you move on through a little bit more of the game, you'll actually encounter these two, which were the two people that were like held up because the dude was like racist, and it's like 1912, I guess. And they thank you, and I'm like, all right, cool. I'm like, yeah, I'm like, I don't stick for no racism stuff. And then of course I gotta grab the item, and then we enter here where we need to get a ticket to go on there. Now this dude's talking. Clearly he's talking on the phone because he knows who we are, and he's calling in like the backup. Of course, that dude talking on the phone again. We're like, come on, bro, we need there. So if you choose to actually not draw your weapon and do the other choice, you'll actually get stabbed in the hand. So and then of course the cavalry shows up, you gotta fight, and then Elizabeth runs off, and then of course you gotta rescue her for the first time. And then once you dispatched all those guys, you have to run back up and meet Elizabeth, but she's making noises like right here that are I would say if you were not looking on screen, you would think those noises were from like something else that is not kid friendly, so kind of adult theme there. And then of course she talks to you, bit of dialogue and stuff as you make your way up this gondola here. Then once you make your way up to the gondola and through you enter this area, which this is one area you'll be in for quite a while. There's a lot of quest kind of things that happen in this area, so you gotta go through a lot of stuff. Then once you reach an elevator, you'll come up through, you'll enter this area, which this is actually, well, this is plasmid number 3 that we can grab, and that is Bucking Bronco. And of course, we look at it and we walk away from it because we do not need that one. And then we enter the next area, which is going to be throw a fireball and boom, instantly incinerate everybody. Yeah, the thing I'd like to point out is since we avoided the murder crows, every crow guy that we encounter coming up will drop one of those, except for one of is Slate's men. When you get to the part of Shock Jockey, the Slate's crow guides don't drop it. And then once again we're back up on the rail, going to the next section of the game. Now this is where we're going to be heading towards the Shock Jockey little sequence there. So yeah, once again another kind of cool little sequence going up. And then again we enter another area where there's going to be a little battle. This area, which we had to dispatch a lot of Slate's men, going through quite a few little sections there. Once again, I don't want to spoil too much, so I'm not filming everything. And then once you hit here, Slate's going to talk, I think, and then of course you'll encounter a Patriot, which is basically a motorized dude with like the minigun, the crank gun, so you're going to have to dispatch him. Then once you dispatch the Patriot and dispatch a whole bunch of other group of enemies, Slate's men, you take him out and everything, and then eventually you will, well, there's quite a lot of guys during this whole sequence, so you're gonna have to take it all out. There's Slate up there, he can't do any damage. Then once you kill Slate's men, you have to grab Shock Jockey or the story will not progress. This is another one that is actually linked to scripting, which is the reason why that you can't skip this. So again, I choose the good method. I'm gonna save him, so I'm like no, and then he says of course the line, so I don't know exactly what that means. You're a tin man. I'm kind of confused there, so I was like, all right, let me avoid the Shock Jockey. Nope. Unfortunately, you do have to grab it. It is scripted in the game. You cannot avoid it because you have to actually shock a few things to actually have it to work. And the melee ability with shock does not arc or activate things, which I did do a test. So yeah, unfortunately, this is number 3, which cannot be avoided. Like I said, it can't be avoided due to this fact, and that is you have to electrify this little device here to the right. So without Shock Jockey, you cannot actually progress in the story because there's no enemies or anything that you can actually activate this other than Shock Jockey. So there is another. And then once you come back to this area for like the 3rd or 4th time with Shock Jockey, now you can then progress in the story by activating this, which I already did because I forgot to film. And then this is coming here. Well, I didn't forget to film when I zapped it. Huge group of enemies spawned. So once again, another scripted sequence where you got to kill a lot of enemies and stuff. So Elizabeth will unlock that door, and then once again there will be another sequence where she's talking to you, telling you stuff about the story and interesting stuff like that. Reaching the top of that gondola thing, going up another elevator, you'll get to the lady Comstock, I think ship is what it said. So yeah, once you activate this, you're gonna enter another sequence where you're like, we're not going to Paris and stuff like that. And she's like, yes, we are. And then she gets like aggressive, and then she's like upset. So you like try to comfort her, and then of course she gets the wrench out, and I'm like, okay, wow. I'm like, really? Yeah. Then once you wake up from getting hit in the head with the wrench, you're gonna have to find her again or rescue her again. There's gonna be a lot of rescuing her. So yeah, there she is again, and then you're gonna be like, wait a second, what are you doing? And then of course you're gonna chase after her. You run after her, she opens a whole bunch of the rifts and stuff. She'll unlock a few rifts and stuff, and then eventually she'll get captured again. This seems to be the recurring thing, that she keeps getting captured. Yep. And then you have to rescue her again, go on a Skyline again, land, Once you battle through the sequence of enemies, you're going to encounter the handyman, which was actually one of the enemies that actually killed me a few times. So at this part, you're like, oh no, the handyman throws a thing, you're dead. And then, of course, she saves you because, like, you would have died right here. You fall on instant death, and then she saves you, and then she brings you back up. And then she's like, you're like, give me your hand. And then she's like, I can't trust you, but then you're the only hope I have to getting to Paris. This kind of was a little cool sequence here. That's why I kind of filmed it. You enter the new area, which is going to be the area that you're going to be at for quite a long time. Once you get to the bottom, you'll be like greeted with like some items, a whole bunch of stuff, which the hand cannon I skipped. The two weapons I kept in this gameplay is the carbine and the submachine gun, which were the two best that I decided. I did fully upgrade them. So here's another area you'll be in for like quite a while. There's like 4 or 5 different side quest areas to go through in this area. And then finally, once you go through all those little side quests, you'll enter this area, which is, here's another kind of scripted sequence. And once again, you'll enter another kind of battle sequence, except you have like teammates. And then again, you'll be entering another side area from that middle area. This is Funk Town, or I can't really remember the exact name of it. But again, another sequence. Elizabeth's talking to you. You're riding down the elevator. You'll enter the kind of like I say police station here, and then again there's gonna be like another huge fight. Then once grinding through the police station, zooming back in time and rifts and stuff, then you'll make your way back to the same elevator that you were just came down on, and then you will then make your way back up to that same exact area. So now you'll come up the elevator again. You'll actually return to this area, and then you'll encounter the plasmid number 6, and that is charge, which we can easily avoid this one, which is we're gonna just ignore it. I'm gonna walk away. At this point, I'm kind of laughing because I'm like, man, I only have 3. I'm like, wow. I did upgrade all 3 to double, so that will help increase, actually give me a little advantage. And then another battle, which actually there's friends this time. And then you'll return again to this same area. There's so many side quests here to do. In this sequence, your teammates are like, they'll cut through like the first set of doors, and then you have to do another kind of battle. This is where the battle is going to be. This is kind of an intense one because like you have to go on like a zeppelin to take it out. So after fighting through all that, another elevator you're going to rise up on again. And at this point, I was like, I'm like, Elizabeth, I'm like, what exactly are you looking at? She's giving like the death stare to someone. I'm like, who are you staring at? Hello? I'm like, who? I'm like, what are you looking at? And then she starts talking. I'm like, all right. I'm like, whatever. Your AI is being weird. Yeah, so this is just another long sequence of going up the elevator, and then you'll enter this area, which actually this area is where we're going to find the 7th plasmid. And the 7th plasmid, after getting rid of those guys, is actually right here. So this is Undertow, which again we're avoiding. We're not grabbing it. That is now, I think, the 4th one that we have now successfully been able to avoid. I'm like, Undertow. I'm like, nope. I'm like, we are not grabbing that. And yeah, the one thing too, Elizabeth kept gasping a lot. Like, I don't know why. She was like like all the time. I'm like, what, where? I'm like, quit doing that. And then I'll just walk in. She's like, I'm like, shh. I'm like, can you stop doing that gasp? Like this time, of course, she's like, gasp. But she would gasp and there's no enemies around. She's like, I'm like, there's no enemies around. I'm like, quit doing that. So that was kind of funny. And now we come to this sequence where Elizabeth is going to, I wouldn't say straight up murder, but she like kind of saves the kid, where she like stabs this woman in the back. She's like gonna kill the kid. Not 100% sure all the story, everything, how that works. So yeah, you have to play the game for more lore and stuff. I got all collectibles, so like the recording thingies, and they try to comfort her, and she has like them crazy eyes, like, don't get near me, I could stab you with these scissors. And I'm like, all right, fair enough. And she runs off again, and I'm like, oh my god. And once you make your way back to her, she's on the ship, which was at the end of that hallway, and then she changed, and I'm like, all right, that's interesting. And then once you activate the zeppelin, this is the sequence where the songbird is going to attack the zeppelin. Zeppelin's gonna crash, and then somehow magically you are gonna be perfectly fine. So once you survive that horrific crash, well, not that bad of a crash, you'll end up in this area where a few more sequences of battle and stuff. It's just kind of a cool little area here. Pora. This is where we're nearing, not too close to the end of the game, but getting there. We're getting there. This is where the part where the handyman spanked me like twice in this sequence after you get on that gondola. At the top of the gondola, you enter this building, and there's this huge building where, again, huge battle. I kind of brought my veteran techniques, like when playing Call of Duty. I just sat back, used my abilities that I had to my advantage, and then, yeah. So Elizabeth then unlocks this area, another mini battle. So since, like I said, I was grabbing all the items, I thought to myself, well, this is one that I didn't actually know existed. So you get like a code book later farther back in the level, actually, and then you go to the salty oyster again, so you have to do a bit of backtracking. A little button there, you press it, open this area. Now this is, I think, the final plasmid. This is return to sender, which I didn't actually know it appeared here quicker than it did another appearance you'll see later on. So again, we're gonna avoid it, or walk away from it, because we do not need that. You're gonna ride to a sequence where you're going down an elevator gets blown up, and then you gotta use the Skyline again. I remember first time playing this, I'm like, what do I do? And then I'm like, oh my gosh, it's the Skyline. I'm like, alright, let's ride this up, let's go to the next sequence. And then once you fight through that little sequence, we'll come back to this, why I'm showing this later on at the end. So here again, I thought this was the very first time you got to return to sender, but no, that secret room was. So yeah. So yeah, we avoided 5 out of the 8, so we're gonna avoid that one again. And then as we near closer to the end of the game, you're gonna get to Comstock's house. Now again, this whole area, there's gonna be so many different other sequences that we're gonna have to do here. We're gonna have to go to the graveyard, a few other sequences in this area that we actually have to. So after battling Lady Comstock, and yeah, she spanked me like 4 times until I figured out the Devil's Kiss strategy, where I just threw it under her when she was like respawning dudes, and it did massive damage to her. So at this point, she Elizabeth is gonna try to apologize, and it's gonna work, and then she's like, why did I do this? And then just a whole bunch of other story related stuff, which I don't want to give away too much. And once again, we have to rescue Elizabeth because she was taken away by the songbird, because songbird would have spanked you easily with those claws. You would have been dead. Of going through to saving her again, we enter another building, go up an elevator, bunch of stairs. We do a whole this, that, and the editing. So this sequence shows that we had to do a whole loop around to get this stupid door open. So I'm like, okay, cool. So this right here actually scared me. I was like, Jesus Christ. I'm like, dude. I'm like, what the hell is that? The stupid ass siren got me there. We think we got to save Elizabeth, but this is older Elizabeth. Once again, due to the time thingy, because there's like multiple universes, alternate universes, different tangent timelines. I'll just show you a glimpse of everything that's going here, because I don't want to spoil too much in the storyline. So yeah, so then you were getting close to saving her. And now you're gonna enter this door, and Lord knows what they're doing to her here. Like, so they got her tied down. You're gonna see she has like a spike in her back very soon, and that disturbs me. And then there's Comstock right up there. So I'm like, oh dude, I'm like, what you doing? I'm like, that's your daughter down there. So yeah, so then we gotta rescue her again. Finally, we are going to rescue her, and kind of like the Matrix, we're gonna have to do a thing where we're gonna have to undo something. I was like, oh sweet Jesus. I'm like, okay, that shouldn't be too deep into her, but apparently the spike was like 4 inches in her back. So then she discusses things. She's like, we have to get rid of Comstock, kill him. And then of course your guy's like, I can't let that happen. And then she's like, what are you gonna do to stop me? Not a damn thing. He's like, because I'll do it for you. So now we get very close to the end of the game here. One thing I like to point out is online and stuff, everyone's like, oh no, what happens if I miss these plasmids? How do I get them? Well, you can get them from that machine, the Vigor, like I said, I wasn't going to say plasma machines. You can get all the ones you missed from there, and they're actually not that expensive. And now we enter almost the final area. So basically you're getting on like Comstock's ship, you're going to go through a whole bunch of sequences of battles and stuff, and then you're going to enter this area where another handyman spanks me. Well, he almost does. And then now this is the final sequenced battle. The final battle, once you hit to the top of Comstock's ship. Now this is the final sequenced battle where you have to protect that thing. I'm not sure what happens if you let it get destroyed, because I didn't want to do that just in case something bad happened. Once again, I was playing this on hard, so this and Lady Comstock were the only 2 sequences that actually gave me a little bit of trouble. Like, to be 100% honest, like, to be really honest, this was not that hard of a challenge. Like, I thought this was going to be so stupid, but, again, you have to take advantage of what you have. This is the end of the game, the end of the line. And once again, to recap, only 3, Possession, Shock Jockey, and Devil's Kiss. Oh, man, this was more fun than I thought it was going to be. This took 2 days to beat with all of the items, the playthrough, and everything. But yeah, this was it. So yep, stay tuned, because there is a few last things that I do want to discuss. So yeah, that was it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for that. To prevent any spoilers, I'm ending it now. Alright, so one last thing I do want to show is this at the very end. Like, you already said multiple universes. There's your character, Booker. Yeah, when she does the rift of Booker, I forgot to film it. He looks like very disturbing, like Lash and Richthofen disturbing. So there's kind of Booker. So if you get this video enough likes, comments, and views, oh, who am I kidding? This was so fun. This coming week, I'm going to do Brutal at Sea. I mean, oh my gosh. I think I'm going to leave that in. It's called Burial at Sea. I'm so stupid. I looked at it so many times and my brain's like, Brutal at Sea. And then I'm like, alright, Brutal, let's see. Then I'm like, wait a second. I'm like, that doesn't seem right. Alright, so yeah, the final and last thing that I do want to discuss is all of the Vigor or plasmid bottles. So we'll first start off with Possession. Now, Possession is seen at the not very, very beginning, but very close to the very beginning of the game. You can grab it. And I thought that that was the only time you would have seen the bottle, but no, at the very end of the game, during that final fight, you actually see the Possession bottle. So that I found kind of interesting. Then the Devil's Kiss bottle is dropped by the fireman at the very beginning, but since it's a forced one to grab, firemen won't drop it anymore, but that bottle is found like literally throughout the entire game. Same with Murder Crows. Murder Crows is dropped by those Zenith dudes. It is not dropped by Slate's crow guys, so it's only dropped by those crows with the coffins on their back and stuff. The bottle is found throughout the game, also in multiple areas. Bucking Bronco is actually found in a lot of areas through the game, so that bottle is found through a lot. Shock Jockey also is found throughout the game in a lot of areas. Now we come to Charge. Now, I don't know if any of you guys noticed any other bottles, but the Charge bottle, I only ever saw it in that one area. Throughout the entire gameplay, I had only saw it one time. Now, I searched almost so many spots, and yeah, I never found it other than that one area. So Undertow is first seen, like, next to that dude right there. It is also seen, just like Possession, at the near end of the game, like at the 3rd or 4th deck area. You can see Undertow is there, so if you did miss it, there you can get it. The Return to Sender. Now, I didn't know that Secret Room I didn't even know that Secret Room was there until I played getting all the collectibles, but it is Return to Sender is there. And then the return to senders in those boxes that I showed, those were the only 2 occasions that I actually had physically seen them. How many Vigors can be skipped in BioShock Infinite? 5. The ones that can be skipped is Murder of Crows, Bucking Bronco, Charge, Undertow, and Return to Sender. The only ones that are physically forced is Possession, Devil's Kiss, and Shock Jockey. So this took a little bit of time to put together, film and stuff. So yeah, thanks for watching, ladies and gentlemen. Just like always, peace. Video's over. It's done. Not exactly sure what you guys are still doing here. You know, you can click off to like another video at any time if you want to. You don't have to. You can just sit on this video and wait with me.